Hi
All
guys,
right, you can go ahead.
can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Question for every webinar. I'm so happy to be here today, and I'm happy that this is one of your first external um, conversations on sustainability and engineering and architecture. And I'll just give you a quick introduction to myself, but it's gonna bleed into our conversation. Feel free to just write your questions in the chat, as Janelle said. Um, I'm Amanda Popkin. If you can go to the next slide, please. This image is from my recent honeymoon. I'll soon be changing my name to McCullough, but that's a long process. So here we are. I'm Amanda Popkin with Popkin Pop-Ups. And we were in Paris recently, where I wrote most of this webinar. This city, as we all know, is like the city of wonder for urban planners. But what I want to talk to you about today is really who we are as people in this incredibly meaningful, influential work that we do. We should have titled this lecture, "We Shape Our Buildings and Thereafter They Shape Us," the Winston Churchill quote. That seems to be a common thread in my work, but that's really not descriptive enough. So I'm glad you guys are all here with the description we had, and hopefully we'll hit all of those high button issues. So let's start by introducing myself. I'm a cyclist, I'm a community activist, a historic homeowner, a tree smeller, a chicken and beekeeper, all of these things you're welcome to ask me more about. I'm also an urban planner, an economic development specialist, a community engagement professional, and a City of Dallas Planning Commissioner. I'm LEED AP certified, CNUA certified, with a master's in city and regional planning. I know most of you are architects, engineers, and there's some sustainability experts here. Many of you may well know a lot of the topics we covered today. No doubt you are experts in your own fields. My goal for this lecture, though I'll no doubt be preaching to the choir, most of it is that some of the topics or connections you make between topics will bring something new to light for you, might expand the framework by which you work, or might ignite your curiosity and inspire you to delve deeper into creative design solutions. I'm a generalist, a student of culture and society, a philosopher, a student of life, and I plan to share with you what I've learned from experts in the field, tying together some of the really big picture issues, how we turn this ship around to make a more sustainable way of life here in the US. The most important thing that I've learned over the years is we shape our places and our places then shape us. There's so much about our personal psychology and our social culture, society at large, that's shaped by the built environment that we live in, driving cars every day. Some of us may even go days without seeing other people if we work from home, or our different lifestyles. The way things are built, we don't have a lot of opportunities for daily interaction unless they're sought out with community organizations. So I really began studying this field in undergrad. I made it my own major at the University of Redlands, titled Social Psychology of Cultural Paradigms, and then got my master's in city and regional planning and worked in economic development for the city of Dallas, cutting my teeth in placemaking, hosting events on a desolate plaza where I myself wanted to eat my lunch, and realized that it was a public place that was very inhospitable, and started to look into tactical urbanism and what we can do to make places better for people. I don't know who needs to hear this, maybe not all of you, but the other thing I've learned in life is that it's really important to follow your nose and just do the things you're passionate about. The research, the volunteer project, it's so easy these days to access information and find community groups that are doing things that you're passionate about. And I would encourage all of you guys to do that, because what I've found is that is your calling, the weird stuff that you keep thinking about, and it leads you in incredible directions and may lead you to start your own game-changing business, in industry disruption business, who knows? But you guys all have an opportunity to do meaningful work in this field. Next slide, please. Yep. I leave a slide out. Wait, go to the next one. Okay, well, the slide, okay, we'll go back to my name, because the slide I meant to have there is that we are all craftsmen. Oh, there it is. We are all craftsmen, designers, and artists. And I really want to emphasize that for you guys, because I think often as engineers and architects, we're really stuck in a silo thinking that, you know, there's one way to do things. This is the right way. These are the design standards we have to meet. And I want you to all really think creatively and see yourselves as creative participants in the urban environment. To really do things well, we can really impact people's lives in a really great way. So to round out this introduction, giving you an idea of where I'm coming from on this, I spent most of my time working in walkable mixed use, often historic towns and neighborhoods, doing tactical urbanism, community engagement, urban design, zoning, marketing, placemaking, and project management for specific improvements. We're all over the place. As a planning commissioner, I've worked on short-term rentals, affordable housing policy, parking, and accessory dwelling unit policies. As a CNUA, I'm a strong proponent of new urbanism principles of placemaking, community-centered design, and was president of our CNU North Texas chapter. This past spring, I taught a graduate course on the sustainable urban plan at SMU's Lyles School of Engineering with my colleague Zad Umaya, a brilliant developer. And that really took me back to my sustainability roots. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about what I learned teaching that class. So we have a lot to cover this afternoon. We have to touch on placemaking, the pillars of sustainability, economic, social, and environmental, and weaving together all of this with connectivity and meaningful community engagement. Next slide. So let's start with the easy stuff and knock that out first. I'd like to start with utilities and connections. I want to talk about the current building and design technologies and trends that are currently inspiring me, many of which you may be familiar with. But first, I'd like to start with placemaking as a basis for this conversation. Next slide. Everything, even utilities that we're about to delve into, comes back to the quality of the place. Even the mundane things like alleyways, see previous slide in Paris, can really be done in a beautiful, creative, experiential way. This is the real art. I'll start us off with an inspiring quote that I just love. I try to read it daily because in the world of climate change and shifting generational priorities and all of the really hard stuff that is going on in the world these days, this gives my work clarity. The artist's job is not to succumb to despair, but to find an antidote to the emptiness of life. A raison d'être, a little beauty, a little kindness, something that brightens your day, something that brightens someone else's day, a little respite in the sea of a chaotic city life. We are building communities, and they can really be lovely, nourishing places for people. That is placemaking for me. Thoughtfully anticipating people's needs in the built environment. A bench in just the right place to view the symphony of the street life, perfectly framed by a well-placed tree. These things take thought and intention and creativity. Many of us are so hungry for places to connect with other people too, to build a community of acquaintances and friends where we're seen. This is a picture of the Kemp House that I worked on with Exeter Properties in the Bishop Arts District, a historic old home that the developer was working to find the right partner to bring a tenant here and activate this spot in the middle of a commercial district. And we started by wrapping the old house with some beautiful art. And before we even finished, I mean, you can see the bottom part of the building is still unfinished. We ended up putting an edge, all this landscaping, the pots are still sitting there. People wanted to take pictures there. And, you know, it felt like a place that people wanted to be. Next slide. But we're not just talking about placemaking for taking photos. This place became a place for us to gather in times of uncertainty and community grief. I don't know if y'all remember when police officers were shot in downtown Dallas during an event. It was a community tragedy, and somebody decided that this was the place to write Dallas Strong, which was kind of the hashtag going around at the time. And almost brings me to tears that, where do we come to gather? That's what we're really talking about here. So I like to think about placemaking as building third places. Your first place is your home. Your second place is your work. Sometimes these are the same place. And then third places are wherever you go to be social, to relax, and to be not at home. So often we're talking about rehumanizing a place like a desolate plaza. You'll hear, for example, the experts at Project for Public Spaces talk about the power of 10 things to do in a place, like eat, sit, drink, people watch, play, etc. We can also think about the edges of an outdoor space, active uses that give multiple reasons for different people to be passing one another in the same place at different times of day, different types of people, there for different reasons. Then is when you get the people who just want to linger, who just want to hang out and people watch. That's where the real magic begins. The little intersections of a building at the public realm are the most important. The porosity, the ability to see through, move through the building. It feels open and welcoming, yet somewhat contained. There's still walls. I think of placemaking as a thoughtfully designed place that includes informal places to sit and gather, informal places to get some food, hang out, relax, grab a coffee, have a beer, a place to people watch, a place to see beauty in landscaping, design, and art, and to be inspired. It's not so much a checklist as it is a frame of mind for the designer. The thoughtfulness to design a place that's inviting at the right scale and accommodating for many different types of users. Essentially, when there are formal third places adjacent, like restaurants and patio dining and maybe a post office or shops and a grocery store, it strengthens the place with this diversity of users at various times. And places like this tiny town that I was in Greece on my honeymoon again, in Vathi, on the island of Ithaca, there was this, it's a tiny village and wonderful little restaurants outside and the tiny little plaza where after dinner, all of the kids, I don't know how many actually lived there and how many were visiting, but everyone had bikes. And you just saw, probably a dozen little kids, maybe 15 riding around on their bikes, their parents hanging around chit-chatting, and over in the corner were the teenagers. And as the night progressed, the little kids went to bed, some of the adults remained, and then the older teenagers came out, and it was just this lovely organic progression of different social groups. I even felt welcome to go up and talk to people. I didn't because we were headed to a restaurant, but it's that type of kind of organic place that simply had, just little concrete areas around the edge to sit, but it was activated by these incredible restaurants and other uses in the town. It was right in the middle of town, and it was just the scale that felt comfortable for people to hang out and be able to talk to one another. So it's those relationships that are created in these places that really create this resiliency that we're looking for when we talk about economic, social, and environmental instability and the kind of resiliency that will help our places weather these trying times. It also adds to our humanity to be around people who are different from us. The real value is in the small moments where we get to know the other, or at least see them, but hopefully interact with them in small, quick ways. But those seemingly insignificant daily interactions can really lead to a sense of belonging and can build casual acquaintanceships that turn into friendships maybe, or at least bring a sense of community. It contributes to a sense of place, a pride and ownership in the neighborhood, and could even be the incredibly impactful, it could even be the impactful relationships that are strengthened in adversity, where small acts of kindness can be incredibly impactful. Everything from hurricanes and tornadoes to needing someone to watch your pet while you're on vacation to fundraisers for an unexpected financial hardship. It's those random acquaintances that, become friends over time that can really help in times when you need a community around you. Without a church community, without a school or parenting community, or adult sports league community, you know, where do we meet people and make new friends? Where can new acquaintances slowly become friends over 10 years? You know, you really get to know someone when you hear little tidbits of their daily life over time. We need these third places, and we desperately need more placemaking. I believe this is the root of a lot of our social ills in our country, and we aren't seeing and talking to people who are different from us, getting to know people who are different from us. So this is a real opportunity that that you guys as designers have an opportunity to impact. Next slide. Let's go back to utilities. So thinking about placemaking and creativity as we go through these are the things that are currently inspiring me about buildings and utilities, and could be implemented into probably every project. Let's talk about water first. I'm obsessed with sensor sinks because I know they're not everywhere, but I've also seen some really bad ones. So if you're speccing those little sinks that automatically turn on when you're washing your hands in the bathroom or whatever, make sure it's a good quality one, because you know the worst situation is that it's spraying water all over everywhere, no one wants to use them, and it's a poor experience. But I think that's a huge opportunity to save a lot of water in a cool, technological way. There's also those refillable water bottle fountains. I don't know if you guys are speccing water fountains and buildings that you're building, but I see these in the newer airports, and it's a game changer. Even if you don't have your own water bottle with you, it's like it makes something click in your brain, like, oh, I should have brought a water bottle. I'd have water all day. Or maybe I can, you know, fill up this empty Coke can I have. Also, gray water reuse. I think there's a lot of good policies that are passing across the nation for gray water reuse. Really creative stuff. By the way, can anyone guess what this photo is? Anyone want to unmute yourself and try to guess? I'll give you a clue. It's from Paris, and it has to do with water. Any guesses?
Wallace Fountain.
Wallace Fountain? It is a
Yeah,
fountain.
I think. Yeah, it's a. I think they're named after the guy who created them. The Wallace fountains. They're all over Paris.
Brilliant. I learned something too. Thank you. They've even got an app that you can find them and find some with sparkling water in them even. But I love that they took the opportunity to make something beautiful and sculptural and a really lovely experience for this little plaza and all over. Let's see. Also, let's talk about electricity. Like I said, you guys probably know a lot of these, but maybe it'll spark something new. I always try to think of, you know, this primary question in my brain is like, how do we continue to distribute the energy grid? Because it's really unstable. There is a long pipeline for our energy, and there's a lot of delicate points in that pipeline where we could easily lose our electricity, and we're becoming even more dependent on it. But, you know, are there creative places for solar, like parking covers or building siding, or even like Tesla's new roof tiles? I've got to see how those are working out. But there's creative small wind turbines, and make sure you always include the batteries so that your building can be the one that's, you know, the hub of electricity in times of crisis. Also, there's some creative stormwater things that you can include in your projects: rainwater harvesting and reuse, of course, bioswales and on-site beautiful drainage. There's some really beautiful bioswale technology and projects that are coming out. And of course, green roofs. I haven't seen that catch on as much as I hoped it would, but I think there's still a chance, and there's a lot more information about how effective they are. And the other one is internet, because I think that's a utility that is becoming more important to our daily lives, and it's really becoming an equity issue, especially in small towns, rural communities, where maybe the only internet is satellite, and it's really expensive. And I mean, not even just in rural areas. In my part of town, in Oak Cliff in southern Dallas, it's a 100-year-old neighborhood and historically neglected, and there is no fiber optic. And I can imagine for a lot of families with kids, you know, internet is essential. So providing internet in public places like lobbies and plazas could be a game changer. I want to talk about transportation, but we're going to go to economics first, because I think that'll be a good framework to start this transportation topic. Next slide, please. I want to go back and just start with this growth Ponzi scheme. You may be familiar with strongtowns.org and Chuck Marone. They basically assert that, okay, so a city gets its funding from primarily property tax and sales tax. And when you start to look at the city as a whole, cities more and more are starting to have finite geographies. For a while, cities have relied on the growth that happens on the edges to add to their budget. They get a new greenfield development, suddenly they're handed all of this new infrastructure that doesn't need new work, and they have new homes and businesses that have, property value and, sales tax from new restaurants and things. So it's this idea that growth will continue. And that's the Ponzi scheme part of it, is that eventually we get to a point where we can't annex any more land. We've built on all of the green fields. What now? And so what Strong Towns is really talking about is once these cities get to the end of the useful lifetime of that infrastructure that was given to them, or infrastructure they put in themselves, roads eventually need to be replaced. Potholes come up. A lot of the pipes in my neighborhood that are over 100 years old are just, old cast iron pipes that just, need to be replaced. So anyways, eventually the city's got to put some money into that, that infrastructure. And if it hasn't received the return on its investments that it needs, then it's not going to have the money to pay for things. And I think that's the crisis that a lot of cities are finding themselves in now, especially if you remember the housing crash of 2008 and 9, when home values went down and a lot of cities just declared bankruptcy. So 3M is a company that's, next slide please, that's doing this analysis. This is an example of some of their work. They're looking at, once you take into account the value per acre of the land, which they're finding is much higher when you've got this kind of historic downtown walkable density development, because often it's lot line to lot line and there's very little parking. But once you get out into the hinterlands that have been developed more recently, then you've got a lot of parking lot that's not really creating any value, and lawns and other uses that aren't as big of a return. And so what they're finding is that oftentimes these higher density areas are really subsidizing the utilities in these lower density areas. So definitely check out Urban 3 and their work. This is from the college town that I went to school at in Redlands, California. Next slide. So if you're interested in more information about that, Google value per acre analysis. You'll see a lot of images like that. Let's see, did I skip anything? Yeah, so the value per acre analysis. So granted, this is more of a city policy issue than an architect and engineering issue, but I'll tell you my philosopher's quandary here. Being in Greece, seeing the Acropolis, what has lasted so many thousands of years, it really makes me beg the question, like, what will be left of our work? What will be here 3,000 or 6,000 years from today? Maybe not much, but many of our buildings are not designed to last this long. It's intentional. We have build to minimums that are required standards for buildings to follow, and many don't go beyond that. It's just too expensive. We are building knowing that what we build will eventually be rebuilt, maybe even with more density. But I wonder, like, where are those materials going to come from? If we're going to just build low density in a really cheap way, we need to start thinking about a circular economy. What can we reuse for what we're building today? Could we be designing in the dimensions that create less waste. For example, building a home that fits the dimensions of 2x4s, you know, just start really thinking hard about the long-term game here. And that's part of the Strong Towns message as well, is, you know, we should be increasing our density to the next appropriate level of density in places that are thriving and bustling and dense. That 1-story downtown should go to 2, and the 2-story area should go to 3. And, you know, we should continue building our cities, and cities aren't meant to last forever just as they are. And many of them have changed a lot over time. And I think it's just important to keep that in mind, kind of as a philosophical way of working. Before we go much further, though, I do want to talk about sprawl, the word. I think it's important for us to determine exactly what is not working in addition to the economics component that we just talked about. This is a really hot button issue for a lot of people. And in my work, I often tell people, you know, I'm not necessarily anti-sprawl, but I think if that's the only type of development we're doing, we're really missing out. And we need a diversity of opportunities for people to have different types of lifestyles and different phases of life. But if we're going to continue building with only sprawl, it creates some really big issues for us. Aside from the economics issues of cities going bankrupt over time, there's a few others. So essentially, sprawl is defined by these 4 features: separation of uses, Euclidean zoning, wide roads, very, very wide roads, and the prioritization of car speed above all else, and auto-oriented retail. So with those 4 components, you can pretty much identify, you know, the type of area that you're in. And so the 7 costs of sprawl that we're really finding out, you know, 60, 70 years into this car experiment of ours, aside from the long-term maintenance crisis, the lower tax base, and the high investment for parking, is heat island effects, exorbitant runoff into streams and erosions, degradation and loss of massive areas of nature, pollution, and social isolation. So I think it's worth considering that we need to be building different types of places. Next slide. So one of the conversations that spawned this lecture was a discussion about the difficulty that developers are having finding enough land for more greenfield development these days. Aside from the economic argument of strong towns and walkable density, I personally see a really interesting cultural trend with my clients. My experience zoning for small towns where residents and elected officials alike do not want to see their community of historic character and quality design be ruined by the placeless sprawl, like name any city next to them that's a little bit closer to the biggest sprawling metro. We're seeing a lot of this around Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. Texas is growing a lot, and a lot of these historic communities have never seen growth coming at them like this. And this is happening across the country, as you well know. Stakeholders are pushing back. Industry is pushing forward against stakeholders' desires. So here's the firm that I work with on zoning code rewrite, simple city design. And let me tell you, the Texas Home Builders Association, the National Home Builders Association are coming after them with reckless abandon. This is an industry disruptor like we've never seen. Like, we're going after their business model, essentially. But it's because it's broken. Even they're having trouble continuing this model. So, you know, the entanglement of actually reversing course is complicated because it's out of the designer's hands. Of course, you know, there's only so much you guys can do. There's banking hurdles, there's zoning hurdles, but many engineers and architects are working diligently to change course where they can in really creative ways. And this is where I've found a lot of value from Congress for the New Urbanism. In earning my CNUA a couple of years ago, I really got to delve into things that you might find useful also, like identifying the natural features of a building site and building around those and highlighting them, like a creek, a stand of trees, rock formations, slopes and hills. Using a street grid is really important. We've done this whole cul-de-sac experiment, and I claim that it has failed. Many others do too, especially Jeff Speck, foremost writer on walkable urbanism. It forces this street hierarchy that makes everyone go to the highway to get across town. I mean, if the highway is jammed, which it likely is because everyone is on it who's trying to get anywhere, there's no other option. You can't take an exit sooner and, you know, go a couple blocks. Having a street grid allows people to spread out and really get to where they need to go in a more efficient way. It's a much more efficient way of building for automobile use, as well as pedestrians and so many other users, micromobility users. And we're finding that it really is a better way of designing neighborhoods and cities. Let's see, what else did we learn in CNUA? Designing streets that allow for multiple vehicle types of mobility and a variety of street types and roles. I love that word of thinking of streets having roles. Creating independent neighborhood units with centers and a mix of uses, where the walk shed, the half-mile radius, the 5-minute walk, is the fundamental unit of measurement. So creating these little quarter-mile independent neighborhood units as you're designing. Also, providing a diversity of housing, diversity of price points, sizes, and maintenance required, you know, whether or not they have yards and how big they are. People are, you know, entering different phases of life and want different things for a lot of different reasons. And if you can only buy in the 300 to 400s for a 3,600 square foot house, like, you know, where are you going to go to find something else? So also creatively integrating and screening the parking that we do need. I think we designers need to be giving that a lot more thought. The city of Dallas is redoing their parking requirements. We're calling it parking reform. And that's one component is we need to be looking at kind of the design aspect of the parking that we do have in addition to minimizing our need for parking. So now we're ready to talk about transportation. To me, it's more about getting around in general than just driving. Next slide. So I want to start with this quote from the book, Suburban Nation. Building strong neighborhoods and cities is a matter of social, economic, and environmental health that determines our quality of life and thereby America's ability to compete in the global marketplace. Like, I'm not just an enemy of sprawl. I am a proponent of the healthiest, most amazing, most beautiful, wealthiest, you know, real American dream cities where people who may not have been born into a lot are able to meet people and have mentors and, you know, make friends and acquaintances outside of their social class and bring themselves up and start a new business. And, you know, small businesses are the backbone of our American economy. Like, I feel like everything about providing more diversity in our built environment really is the American dream that we all want to pretend the American dream is. Like, that's what we're really buying into. So in my mind, the linchpin here is transportation. Next slide. So the most important part of a good transportation system is good land use patterns. In fact, some would say land use and transportation are the same. You've got to have buses, trolleys, and bike lanes that go to destinations that are walkable then. And I mean, that's really the only way to entice people out of their cars. It's got to be a more lovely experience than getting into your air-conditioned car and driving right up to the window of where you want to be. Like, it's got to be a less enticing experience for the car drivers and a more amazing, beautiful experience for the micromobility users if we're going to, you know, kind of start to tip the scale here. So to that end, I've got this other great quote from Suburban Nation. This is so great. I love the picture it paints. Narrow streets and difficult intersections are useful in communicating to drivers that they do not, in fact, own the road. Under ideal circumstances, drivers passing through well-designed residential neighborhoods are made to feel that they're borrowing the street space from the people who live there. That's just, I feel like that's so different from the way most of us experience the streets we live on. Okay, so for transportation in designing neighborhoods and projects, a great rule of thumb is start with what you have. So if you're working with a town and you're looking for how to improve their transportation, start with the historic downtown if they've got one. It's a great experience to just park on one side, walk through the whole thing, and it really, the value that's created in that downtown can really echo through all of the surrounding neighborhoods. So start there and focus on good connectivity. Pick some walkable nodes. Maybe you don't have a downtown, but maybe you've got a shopping center that's going to be the walkable center node, and start knitting together a network of micromobility, trolley plans, other modes that help people get to work, get to dining, go to restaurants and have fun, go to school without having to drive. If these places are popular, it'll be enough of a pain to drive there that maybe people will start looking into different alternatives, but the road design needs to be prepared for people to start finding those alternative options. Also, I would recommend permanent infrastructure, always permanent infrastructure, where you want to have real change happen, because the real selling point of permanent infrastructure, if you think of a train or a trolley, is that forever you will have people getting off of that in that place. The stations will likely stay where they are, and you can build a building and a business and a life as an investor, knowing that there's an assurance that you're going to have the traffic that's created by that piece of permanent mobility. Also, keep in mind that public transit works best when the stations are the destinations. I know it's really hard when we're retrofitting cities that have been designed around cars to put the transportation components in the right places. That last mile of mobility can be a really essential component, but if you have the opportunity, development needs to be built around the transit, period. For the transportation engineers, definitely highly recommend reading Jeff Speck's Walkable City Rules, and also Chuck Marone's Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. Both of these speak to the land use component of how to make cities fiscally sustainable that we've been talking about, and also the engineering details of how you actually do that. And actually, Walkable City Rules has a ton of really great information about affordable housing and, you know, just kind of everything that really ties into transportation. You know, it's such a huge part of our lives. It really, it echoes throughout a lot of different types of social issues that are top of our mind these days. Also, I want to talk a little bit about electric cars, because I know everyone's super excited about them. Even I am. My new husband has one and I love it so much. But I think it's important to remember that electric vehicles fix one problem, the exhaust, and create others. One new problem that has recently come to light is the tire wear is so much more intense because the vehicles are heavier and the power is so much more that tires are wearing so much more quickly, and the microparticulate pollutants in the air and the land and the sea are becoming a real issue. But also because, you know, we're still having to move people around in a really, really inefficient way. And I think that's the part of the how do we fix mobility? How do we, you know, leave the smelly automobile problem that I feel like people are forgetting? We still have legs. We can still design cities for walking and biking and scootering, and there are so many more cool new technologies coming out. I mean, I can't wait to see the day when golf carts and scooters and, I don't know, four-wheelers are moving people around our cities. We work with a lot of little towns that have golf carts in their downtowns and their rural communities. I mean, people are already using it. It's really interesting. And I think, you know, the cities of the future are going to look different than what we have now. It's just unsustainable, this car experiment that we've done. We've got to find some really impactful ways of changing it. And micromobility is, you know, human powered and electric is the most flexible, eco-friendly, and effective way that, I mean, even building smaller electric vehicles, having an electric Humvee really isn't doing much But if you've got an electric smart car, you know, that's a really different way of getting around, and your impact on the environment, and not to mention how you know, your impact on the roads and how often the roads need to be redone. And you know, it starts to paint a very different picture once we're emphasizing micromobility as a primary way of getting around. And you know, I like to remind people that I know not everyone can walk. There are people who do need to drive, either for work or for, you know, health purposes. I mean, absolutely, my 97-year-old grandma does go on a 1 mile walk every day, but not everyone's 97-year-old grandma is able to walk. And the best thing we can do is to allow everyone else who wants to get out of their cars to give that space for cars over to those who really do need it. I just can't emphasize this stuff enough. I feel like this is my biggest soapbox that I've been on these days, is talking about transportation and micromobility. But I have one more thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about community insights. As a designer, you guys have multiple clients. You have the ones that pay you and the ones that use your product after you're gone. And depending on the product, especially in projects where community engagement isn't really necessary, you can really gain a lot of value from spending a little time researching, even just researching from your desk, researching adjacent neighborhoods, civic groups, town events. But even more insights are going to be gained from maybe just sitting at a nearby coffee shop, asking the barista what she thinks about the project, or questions related to the project, like where do you go to hang out after work and why? People love talking about themselves, and you might even learn something, but people may have all kinds of surprising things to say that might give you insights to the site, the local preferences, or maybe even some unrecognized need that the project could help provide for the community. So just wanted to encourage you that a little time and curiosity can go a long way. Take your family to dinner in the random town that you're designing in, or, you know, stop by on a family road trip or something. You might be surprised. I feel like that's the most valuable work that I do, is those little conversations with people. Big community meetings are helpful and everything, but just sitting and people watching can really give you a lot of insights. So I think that wraps it up. Next slide. I hope you guys learned something, or at least found some inspiration, or some books or websites, or something that you're excited to go down a rabbit hole with. My call to you now is to continue seeking innovative design solutions. Help educate your developer clients. Help them see the future and how they can be celebrated. Push for zoning reforms when speaking with staff and in your daily lives as experts. And do call me in, or my team, Amanda Popkin, or Popkin Pop-Ups, Simple City Design. And I have a vast network of historic preservationists and developers. And I didn't even mention the Incremental Development Alliance. These guys are doing incredible work to create small developers and change the landscape of the places we live in. But please call if there's any way that we can help. I'm here to answer any questions, and I hope you guys have some good ones. What did you think?
Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing this very insightful perspective. It was really inspiring. And at this point, we would like to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has them, please feel free to unmute, or you might raise your hand or enter them into the chat. We'd be happy to take your questions. We do have a few questions. First question, why would developers be building a product that people don't want? Don't they have a lot of data and research about what they're selling?
Yes, that's a great question. I think a lot of times the data and research that the developers are using are things that they're getting out of their conferences when they're all sitting together and they're chit-chatting about what they're doing and how they're changing the color of the tile in the kitchen and the size of the master bedroom and where the stairs are located. But I don't think they're really talking about, oh, the zoning policies where I'm trying to build are changing because people want something different. I don't know, does that even work? Because the data that I've seen is that home values, prices per square foot, are really higher in communities that are more diverse. So when you've got a mix of different price points and different housing, I guess, sizes and types, townhomes, and smaller and larger, 2-story, 1-story, like different types of home options, even a small variety, it's much more valuable, especially if you can get that mixed use component in there. Like those are the neighborhoods that are even more expensive right now. So if you're trying to build a really great product that's going to sell really quickly, and the only reason that that's not being built more is because it's hard, because implementing the retail component into a residential project is typically something that home builders don't know anything about. They don't do retail. They don't know what works. They don't know how to design it. They don't want to mess with it. It's a completely different arm of financing in the bank. Like maybe the bankers that they use typically don't even want to do mixed use stuff. So I think and I hear this coming from the Congress for the New Urbanism community, is that like doing good designs that create great communities that people love is really, really hard work, especially in places where there's not even the zoning that allows it. I think the one reason we're getting a lot of the development we are is because that's what the codes tell us to build. The developers are following the rules and they're building by right. And it's really arduous to try to change the rules, go through the whole zoning process, even for something that is lovely or popular, is going to sell out, has lots of demand. It's a long process to change the way we do things. And there's just so many components in there. And I mean, we talked to one builder who said, we were hearing from the community that they wanted these front porches and they wanted more walkable, kind of like the historic neighborhoods that surround historic downtowns, where the streets are a little smaller and, there's a yard and then there's a porch. And, it's just got a different feel. It's got like, trees in different places, not just one in every yard. And, all kinds of architectural things that lend itself to like a great pedestrian environment. And that's what people in this community were asking for. And we had a home builder there who said, are you serious? You're going to ask me to go back and create another model? Like, I'm going to have to go back to headquarters and they're going to have to create a whole new design. Like, do you not even want us to build in your community? And we were like, yeah, we totally want you here, but like, we don't want that design. That yes, please go back to headquarters and ask them to give you a different design, like if that's what it's gonna take. But he was just so put out that, we're asking them to change their business model essentially. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons.
Wow, yeah. Great, thank you. We have a question on one of the slides that you shared. Here, I'll pull it back up here. We're asking, what do the different colors on this slide represent?
Yeah, so this is the return on investment. And the purple is the highest return in terms of property value and sales tax. And in some of the models they then integrate a like price for the utilities. So then you'll see these bar charts start to go down where the money that the city is making on each property is only accounting for this much. The utilities they use, or the streets that will someday need to be redone, use this much money, and they're in the red. But this one I think is just demonstrating which parts of town have a high property tax and sales tax, which properties the city's getting the most money from. And then the gray ones are outside of the study area.
Yes, that seems to make sense. Great. That answers the question.
Any other questions? Any other comments on what especially has inspired you or things you'd want to share with the group? I'm sure I could learn a lot from you guys too.
We do have a question. Maria's asking if there is a model city that incorporates all these elements that create a great third place in the United States currently.
I would say in terms of great urban spaces, New York City has been doing a lot to change that. A lot of people cannot own a car. It's cost prohibitive and there's just no space for it. So they're doing a lot of really innovative stuff. You've probably heard of Times Square being closed down and it's now a pedestrian park. But I think there's a lot of towns that are trying this to varying degrees of success. You know, Dallas by no means is a poster child for any of this, but the AT&T headquarters in downtown recently abandoned a couple of streets and created an amazing plaza. They're calling Discovery Plaza with, I'm so impressed at how they designed this. They've got inspiring art, like technology on the side of the building. They busted out the bottom 2 floors of all the surrounding buildings and created this great food court and great eating places. And there's stages and there's, you know, movies that show, and it's just a really well-designed place. So I think you could probably find a place like that in a lot of cities across the US, but I would imagine that that project was difficult to do and is really amazing everyone at how successful it is and getting everyone to think about how they can do it more. But a friend asked me this the other day, and I'm struggling to, I'm not familiar with every single city in the US, but I'm struggling to find, you know, a city who's doing everything right. I think, you know, every city's got things that it's excelling at and things that it's working at. We're all struggling to figure out the right protocol for adding density, getting more housing into cities, accessory dwelling units. But in terms of like placemaking in third places, it's scary to close down a road. And what I've heard is that there were a lot of roads closed in the 80s that became pedestrian malls that then killed all the retail. So a lot of cities are really wary of doing that. So you really want to wait until, you know, you've got people spilling over from the sidewalks and it's really congested to take that kind of a step. Unless you're doing something like Discovery Plaza, maybe making a plaza where it's already a high density destination. So yeah, that's a tricky one. Yeah, I think you could probably find some good examples in a lot of cities.
I'll just throw in for mid-sized cities, I think Indianapolis is doing a really good job. They have the cultural trail, which basically, if you're looking for like a multimodal city, they've done a lot of bus rapid transit. The cultural trail connects to a couple different trails like the Monon Trail and stuff and gets you to sort of these satellite cities. But just within Indy, there's a pretty large protected system, multi-use, you know, path system, and it spurred a ton of developments. So there's a lot of you know, within downtown and just sort of immediately surrounding downtown, there's a lot of, you know, like low to mid-rise mixed use buildings happening, you know, multi-family resi buildings happening, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, Indianapolis, I think, is a pretty good example for a mid-sized city.
That's surprising, Patrick. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you both. Really amazing presentation.
Let's see, one other question in the chat. Any ideas for making biking more palatable in summer and winter and extreme weather months? Yeah, that's a great question, because we definitely see people biking in like Copenhagen when there's like feet of snow on the ground. And I think it's because the city prioritizes cleaning the bike lanes and making micromobility accessible. They're also really great at providing, like Patrick was talking about, those mixed use hike and bike trails that are separate from the road. So at least that gets you away from the urban heat island of the massive amount of concrete that you're biking next to if you're on a shared bike lane. But if you're, kind of on a path, you can be under trees. I mean, it's often 2 or 3, 5 degrees cooler just getting away from the roads. But yeah, I think sometimes weather is used as an excuse for people to say, oh, it could never happen here. But it's surprising that if the infrastructure's there and it's beautiful and it's easy to figure out where you should go and it feels safe and comfortable, like people are going to do it, like especially, baristas who are looking for another way to save $1, a small business owner with a young family trying to, survive with one car, like they're going to make it happen no matter what the weather is. And like, I'm really not convinced that showers in places are something that we necessarily need. I've had friends from Copenhagen come to visit and, they just show up to meetings in their tank tops and then, add their coats later as they cool off. So I think it may just kind of be a cultural thing of acceptability and excitement about being able to get around our cities in different ways, but definitely providing some cooling elements like shade trees, landscaping, water along bike paths could help.
Thank you. I know we're at time here, but if you're able to answer, I think we just have one more question in the chat. You're able to hold on just another minute. Morgan says, I've heard you talk a lot about active transportation and single user vehicles, but how do you see utilizing public transit better to fill the gap we see in accessibility in urban spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've seen, Houston just redid their bus routes. Dallas just redid their bus routes. There's a lot of complaining about changes. I mean, that's one strategy to make sure your buses are going to destinations and getting people there quickly. I'll just tell you, the recent new technology that I've heard about is called Swift, swiftcities.com. It was a Google spinoff that is kind of like a gondola experience that kind of, anyways, gets you out of the public right of way. I think there's opportunities for more innovative ways of getting people around, like you're saying, using public transit. But I really, like, my personal experience is that the fixed rail, trolley, and trains are so good. It's just such a great experience. They're on time, they're clean, and I've had so many experiences with friends and myself where, the bus just never comes. It was supposed to come, it didn't come 20 minutes later, and it didn't come 20 minutes later, and now what? And if you've got 2 kids, you just can't take that risk. Like, so I think, if we can make more reliable transportation systems, but also we need the density to support the high frequency. And once you get to that 15 or 20 minute window, then you can just show up at the station and know that you're going to have one come soon. But until you get to that window, until you have enough density to support that type of high intensity, it's just really a struggle. And it just seems like it doesn't really work for anyone. So I don't know, this isn't really my area of expertise because I feel like it's just not working. But yeah, there's definitely room for improvement. Oh, Chattanooga, Tennessee is a great case study. Okay, thanks, Amanda. Awesome. Any other questions? Great. This has been fantastic, you guys. I'm glad I learned from y'all too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This has really been a great presentation, and we really appreciate your time here. Thank you for everyone on the call for joining us, and we'll be looking forward to sharing more with you in future sustainability and resiliency learning labs. So hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, you all. Do good work. Bye.